Hello, wonderful. This is Sarah, and I am here with Elsbeth Meuth, and she is a beautiful soul. I mean, she's just a beautiful person. If you're just listening to the podcast and you can't see her beautiful face, I'm sorry for you and her beautiful soul. And she has helped thousands of women create lasting, intimate relationships. And through sexual healing, through the ability to start over. In fact, she had a NBC show called Starting Over, which is what drew me to her work. And she's the best-selling author of Sexual Enlightenment, which has been endorsed by lots of amazing people who are amazing as her. Hello, how are you?
Hi, Sarah. I'm very great and I'm delighted to be here with you today.
Before we went on air, we've been talking ground mushrooms versus coffee versus being feeling beautiful through happiness and all kinds of amazing things. And I'm excited about how this conversation is going to unfold as well.
Yes.
we got the giggles even before we started. So
I'm
now,
def definitely up for an adventure.
well, I love it. So where do you want to start on our adventure of conversation? There's so many things I know I want to talk to you about. Let's go with when you think about starting over, especially people who've had to start over in, their 50s, even 60s. What have you learned from coaching so many people? You've coached billionaires too, right?
Yes.
Um, so many successful people. What's the key to success in starting over?
Oh, I think starting over is actually essential. If we don't start over, we just keep repeating what we have done during the first part of our life. And there's something very special for women when they come into their 50s, 60s, or beyond,
Mm-hmm.
is that we come more into ourselves. I mean, I'm a great example of it because when I entered my 50s, I really felt that being a management consultant, while I had gotten very good at it, but something was missing for me that didn't fulfill my self expression. And that was the time when things shifted for me, not only professionally, but also deeply intimately and internally,
Mm-hmm.
because it was a time when I was distraught about relationship. I was actually despaired because I was attracted to unavailable men, which was exciting at times, but most of the time I was alone. And there came a moment when I thought, okay, Elspeth, if you keep going like this, the trajectory is clear. You're going to end up without having lasting intimacy and love in your life before you leave this planet. And I was not willing. I was not willing, to have that. Now, I did have love and intimacy in my life, but I was not able to sustain it.
Mm-hmm.
And I always thought, Sarah, that like the guys were not available, and they were not available either. They were already with another woman or married to their work or not emotionally available until I did my deeper work
Yeah.
that actually was brought on through studying meditation and then Tantra, that I delved into my intimate, emotional, and mental, spiritual being, where I discovered that I was not available. It came as news to me, and it had to do with that I discovered that I didn't trust men. Now, if you
Ah, yes. And then life proved you right.
exactly, but I didn't
Yes.
know it.
Yes.
Because at the outside I looked very available.
Mm-hmm.
But the inside, there was something that was holding me back. And it was like, a screen in front of my eyes. I couldn't see it myself. And in the deep, work, the healing work I did on all levels, sexually, emotionally, and spiritually, I discovered that I had made the decision when I was 18 years old that men are never there for you when you really need them. And I had full reason for it, with a boyfriend that I was so in love with, and we had spent a couple of years so blissfully, then asked me to have intercourse. And I agreed, although I was not ready for it, and it was freakingly painful. I
Oh,
had to go, yeah, to the gynecologist, and the bill went to my house. My dad opened it. All hell broke loose. He called me a whore. The
right. Yeah.
boyfriend left shortly after. And while I had worked on that in therapy in my 30s, which was really great, so I thought it was complete.
Over. You thought it was over. Yes.
What I did not know was that we hold residual memory on the cellular level in our physical being, and particularly in our sexual center. When do we go to our sexual center and explore our sacred space in terms of, what may still bother you
Right.
from your youth or from your early adulthood? Anyway, so by discovering that, I could clear that. And then, the result was deeper trust in myself, first and foremost, and more trust in men in general. And 6 months later, my beloved came into my life, who's now
I
my
love that.
husband, my business partner. And so, why I'm sharing this here has to do with that was really an essential time for me, because out of clearing myself in the intimate emotional realm, what opened up was that I then decided to leave management consulting and teach this to other women, what I just had learned about myself. And
Love that.
yeah, and now we can contribute to women, to couples. Freddie works with men, where it's just as much needed.
Yeah. Mhm.
So,
Well, absolutely. And in my own story, people say, "Where did you meet your husband?" They don't say, "Who were you when you met him?" Right. And it's like we ask the wrong question, as if, because I had done an enormous amount of work between, before I met him and trying to prepare for life. And I was preparing for that relationship as well.
yeah,
Right.
that's such a great question. I love it
Mm-hmm.
because that really puts it squarely back over here, because that's the only place. I mean, here we hold the key to the door.
Mm-hmm. That's the key to the door. And you mentioned something about coming into our own. So many of my listeners are in their late 40s, 50s, and early 60s. And you mentioned something, you said the phrase like coming back into wholeness, coming after wholeness. And I just, it just felt like coming home to me. Can you talk about that experience?
Yes, yes. So a couple of things here. One is that, around 50 has something to do with a hormonal shift
Mhm.
also. In many women, mid 40s, late 40s, that starts actually. The physiological change affects our brain and our emotionality. And while we have, I mean, you are not at that age yet,
I'm
however,
not at that age yet.
20 are already living a great life. Can you imagine what's further going to open up for you? So the thing is that we become less externally oriented,
Mhm.
where we actually measure ourselves, how good we are or not in any area of life. When the 50s start settling in, this actually starts shifting, and that allows us to listen more to what's underneath, and then
Mhm.
have this, that this can be allowed to be expressed. I'm a great example for it, and I see it over and over again. So that is one part. Now, what was the other thing I wanted to share? Could you say the question again?
Coming into wholeness, coming back into our own.
Yes,
Yes.
because that very fact brings us more back to wholeness. If I'm not externally oriented, however, internally, where the wisdom resides, wow. The other thing is, in coming back to wholeness, what's essential is collapsing the compartmentalization that we have appropriated, not consciously. So, what I mean by that is that we are compartmentalized in our physical, sexual being, our emotional heart, love being, and then our mental, and we could call it consciousness or spiritual being, depending on, you know, where you're coming from. And what we do when we grow up, we compartmentalize that because we cope. You know, if I'm afraid to sharing my heart fully, because when I did it when I was 5 years old, I was ridiculed, I may be a little cautious. And this is not just then a 5 year old experience that trails me throughout life. So, in order to actually fully open my heart again, because if I want to be sexually fulfilled without an open heart, I'm just split. You know, I can have
Mhm.
sex without love easily. However, the experience of wholeness and fullness lives in the integration of sex and heart, and then heart and my thoughts and, you know, mental being. So in my work with women, I guide them in tapping into their what we called, you know, the yoni center,
Mhm.
which in Sanskrit is the sacred space of a woman. Imagine you and I, we would have gotten introduced to our sexual center as a sacred space.
Mhm.
For me, I know the trajectory around my sexual development would have looked differently.
Mhm.
Because if that is a sacred space, I want to connect with it instead of, oh, don't touch there. Don't go there until you're married. Like, what's forbidden about that? You
Mhm.
know, tuning with that life giving, creative energy that is God is given, and that fuels us. And that's another thing that women, when they awaken in their 50s or beyond to themselves in that way, they get more connected to their creative energy because
Mhm.
life force energy is creative in nature. It brings forth life, you know.
Mhm.
So, however, the wholeness, back to the wholeness, is really the integration of our yoni center, love center, and mental and spiritual center.
So
I don't know
that's,
if
oh, I know
resonates.
exactly what you're saying. Yeah. So when people talk about being in flow, or maybe even that can also be a part of being your authentic self, right? There's not any places in your life that are still shut off or forbidden or tucked away because the pain is too much to deal with. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. And the pain can show up in any dimension.
Mhm.
You know, some women are totally in their head,
Yes.
not connected with their heart. Not that they wouldn't want to, but that is how they have learned to cope with life, you know? And energy, now this is not just a construct we make up. The thing is that life force energy emanates from the base of the spine and then moves up in a serpentine way to the top of the head and then back down again. And it does this with every inhalation and with every exhalation. Now, if I'm disconnected from my love energy and my life force energy, like the aliveness of the beauty of the intimate self, then you know, I'm not in flow. So there is again a physiological dimension, an energetic dimension, a sexual dimension, a love dimension, what I mean with, you know, emotional intimacy. And then, of course, also the thoughts, I think. So to reintegrate, that allows the energy to flow freely. And that is when we feel well.
So, what advice? I want to go back to the 6 months before you met Freddie. Okay. So, because that's where many of my women would be, right? They have had pain, maybe sexually traumatic experiences, definitely dealt with rejection, that those types of feelings that have come up. And what steps should they take? I don't want to get into just preparing for a guy, but what steps should they take to reconnect with themselves?
Great question. So, actually, that being connected lives totally within.
Mhm.
So being intimate with another cannot be experienced when I'm not intimately connected with myself. It's
Mhm.
not possible
Mhm.
because the feelings, the sensations, they emanate from here. Freddie, I don't get turned on because of Freddie. It's not possible
Mhm.
if I'm not turned onable.
Oh, I like that phrasing. Yes, yes. Love that.
So I'm already turned on, and I don't mean it in a way that it always has to be so wild sexually,
Mhm.
but like turned on to life, turned on to
Yes.
my being, turned on to my breasts as a connection or an extension of my love, or, you
Mhm.
know, and that just flows over,
Mhm.
you know,
So
it
it's that open to receiving without needing,
exactly.
right? Yeah.
And open to sharing the beauty, the flow, just as a state of being.
Uh-huh.
And of course, he loves it
Mhm.
because he's open, he's connected with his man in his manhood, is open in his heart. That is what's so essential for men,
Mhm.
to drop into the connection of their manhood with their heart because they are compartmentalized there.
Have you ever heard of like the sacred, like I'll just say BJ in the context of this, but like how like I'm sure you're familiar with this, the much more so than me. But like where men, that's such a place that like a ball comes and they protect it, or something along those lines, and how there's actually so much tension in like the male area. Or are you familiar with that, or have you heard about that?
Very familiar. I mean,
Yes,
this
yes,
shows up so much in our work.
yes.
And so there's something very foundational which has to do again with hormones.
Mm-hmm.
Hormones are so essential for being alive or being stuck. Or now, I'm not saying that is the only thing, but these chemicals are really not insignificant.
Mm-hmm.
So for males, mostly when they want to connect with another, it doesn't matter if it's a woman or a man, they start feeling it in their sexual center.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that they choose it, that is the proclivity. Most women, when they want to connect, again, it's not, relationally specific, if whatever preference I have, most of us start feeling it in our heart center. Even
Mm-hmm.
in same sex couples, there is one that is more leaning towards the yang energy, the masculine, and the other one more the yin energy, the feminine. So then we are just like two ships passing in the night. I'm looking for the heart connection, he is looking for his manhood connection. That is nothing good or bad about it, nothing right or wrong. The secret here is that a man learns to channel up his energy from his sexual center into his heart center. So he then can connect with her heart center or the feminine's heart center. And so when my heart center opens, guess what? My
Right.
yoni opens. And then we have a circuit,
Mm-hmm.
that then we play on in
Mm-hmm.
couplehood. But each of us needs to do our work
Mm-hmm.
around that. He needs to learn to channel his wonderful testosterone energy up into his heart. Because if it just comes out here, it's not very conducive to connection.
Mm-hmm.
It's more selfish, like lusty. Now, it's the same for women who are more centered in their sexual center. They are, that,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just great. It's just that this doesn't allow for opening to connection because I'm more concerned with myself. Sarah, you may have experienced that when you may have been, I don't know if that ever happens, but perhaps gotten horny,
Mm-hmm.
like that we are so like about fulfilling this desire
Mm-hmm.
that it's much more about ourselves than connecting with the other.
Mm-hmm.
We almost may use the other a little bit.
Right,
Now,
right.
there is nothing wrong about it.
Mm-hmm.
In our work, there's nothing good or bad or right or wrong. The question is is this the only way how I can relate to myself and another? Then it's
Oh,
very
what a
liberating.
what a great question. Is that the only way you can connect, right? And what a great question. And that would be an important question. We think about that probably like, oh, males shouldn't just connect sexually. That's probably easier for us to identify with than, well, females shouldn't be so in their head that they can't
Yeah.
connect physically,
Yes, right.
right? Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
maybe not as, we don't point as many fingers as to those women, but that's our own work too, right?
And then that leads us back to your earlier question around women. You
Mm-hmm.
know, what is the work there? To how can I actually drop out,
Mm-hmm.
you know, of the monkey mind, so to speak, like this turning up here all the time, into the body, into the heart. And that is really, what it is for us to, as women, to really allow ourselves to trust ourselves to drop into the heart. Now, again, here's the word trust, which is so essential for us women because the feminine energy is flowing, is round, is capricious, sexual feminine energy is rising slowly, hangs out there. We don't know if it's coming or going.
Mm-hmm.
However, when it's reawakened, it comes up on a plateau and can stay there for a long time. You
Mm-hmm.
know, multiple orgasms, orgasmic waves. Unlike males, the energy goes, getting easily excited and aroused, and then the energy also dropping quickly. So it
Uh-huh.
goes like this. He came and went
Mm-hmm.
while she hangs out there, unless he learns to channel his energy. And she opens up to herself, to her feminine, which may feel at times more vulnerable
Mm.
because receiving is a
Yes.
vulnerable state in nature. To be open. And what it calls for is trusting. I cannot receive without trusting.
And
And
every time you bring it back to trusting yourself first. You said that about 3 times, and I'm always thankful because you always start with trusting yourself before, because that could feel like a huge leap for women, right? It's like, oh, I can't even trust myself. How am I supposed to trust someone I'm on a date with? Or,
right, and then to avoid it because it may feel too vulnerable.
yes, yes.
Then that is where we stay in our head because there we can protect ourselves from feeling,
Mm-hmm.
distance, oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it also robs us from the most blissful experiences that the goddess has offered us,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh,
like
I
the
love that.
universe.
Yeah, I love that. And I do want for our listeners, if you could talk a bit on what it feels like to be in a healthy relationship versus what it felt like to be in those relationships with people who were emotionally unavailable, I think were your words. Can you talk about, because if someone has only been in those emotionally unavailable
Mm.
relationships and they have the question, what does healthy love feel like? What does a healthy relationship feel like? My parents didn't model it for me, right?
Yes.
How am I supposed, TV doesn't model it for me. How am I supposed to know? So how are they supposed to know? Can you give us some insight into that?
Yeah, it's the exploration into ourselves, like the curiosity. What is it that I don't see about myself? Which is actually, once I could see it, is the key to the door to myself
Mm-hmm.
that then opens the door to another. Because when I'm vibrating on a constriction, like not trusting is energetically speaking a constriction,
Mm-hmm.
where I
Mm-hmm.
cannot
Yes.
open
Yeah.
my, yeah, where I
Mm-hmm.
cannot open my heart fully because it's not safe. But
Mm-hmm.
it's not that we made this up ourselves consciously. It's
Right.
like a nanosecond decision we made when we were, 5 months old, or 5 years old, or 15 years old. And then it's like the womb, it's not reflected. And that stays within us then also not only as a thought, but also as a feeling. And thoughts are feeling, and feelings are pure frequency. We cannot touch, it's not matter. We cannot touch a thought. We
Mhm.
cannot see a thought. We cannot touch love.
Mhm.
We cannot see it, but we can feel it.
Mhm.
So if I shift the frequency within, if I clear that distrust that I may not even have known about, if I can clear the fear or, the sense of not feeling safe,
Mhm.
which means I shift my frequency, my vibration. So then I get in tune with myself and I vibrate on what I call being my original self. That is totally fluid. Then I attract that energy, because
Oh.
if I'm a constricted energy anywhere all over or in one, in parts of me, that is what I attract. So usually the relationships, when there is turmoil and disappointment and not being heard, not feeling loved, or I
Mhm.
give everything over there, but it's like a sponge,
Mhm.
the answer is not over there, because it has something to do with what I am sending out, so to speak. It's like a radio frequency.
Mhm. And that's why you see some people and they continually create amazing circumstances for themselves. And some people also, their pattern is that high frequency, high vibration, opportunities, lovely connections, and then other people kind of recycle into the same pain over and over, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I did it for 50 years,
Mhm. Mhm.
you know. So there's so much opportunity and shift. It's like an instrument. We retune ourselves and then we vibrate just on that pitch that is right for us, so that the pitch can resonate with another's pitch. It doesn't have to be the same pitch, but they need to resonate with each other.
Did you know my undergraduate degree was in music?
You must be kidding.
No, I'm not. And earlier you said, I want to go back to the question you asked about how to get out of your head. And I thought, I didn't ask that. I thought it. And then you answered it. And I was just thinking it because I wanted to ask that question, but I didn't want to interrupt. So we are in tune as it goes. But yes, the
And,
pitch frequency. Yes.
and Sarah, I have an undergraduate and graduate degree in music.
Really? What instrument? Are you a vocalist or an instrumentalist?
No, my it was violin, and then I studied and taught eurythmics for a number of years. Eurythmics is a form of cultivating musicianship through using the body as an
How
instrument. So
cool.
yeah, it's a great way of learning music theory in an experiential way.
And what a beautiful gift. It's interesting now. I was always on stage growing up, being a piano performer. And now it's interesting how that work has transferred here. And people are like, oh, are you nervous about, being on things? It's like, what? I've been doing this my whole life. I was 5 years old in a play having to talk in front of people. And in your work, using your body as an instrument,
Mm.
and now what has transferred into what you do now. What a beautiful story and legacy of that.
Ah, thank you. I think what you just said may be a great example that, from early on, you had gotten accustomed to being on stage.
Mhm.
Now, this is an experience that really molded you. It lives in your nervous system as a capacity to be on stage and not
Mhm.
afraid.
Mhm.
That is just the other way around when we have these, whatever I call it, the unpleasant experiences. That's
Mhm.
a pleasant evolution,
Mhm.
that lives in your body. Just the other way around, if I had a negative experience, then that is being cultivated.
Mhm.
And so this is why we want to shift our body, our nervous system, recalibrating so that we can be, oh, I'm here on stage
Right.
experience, however that may apply.
Mhm.
Um, and it's doable and it's not rocket science. However, you asked me also, what is it that, what about if we just do a little practice for a moment?
Yes, I would love that. Yes, I would love that.
Right, so that each of you who is listening can tap into, let's choose the heart, because the heart is the
Mhm.
reconciler, can drop into your heart in a nanosecond. So if you want to close your eyes, if you are driving, please don't do this practice with closed eyes. Actually, take a moment when you don't do anything. It will be the most powerful way of you getting it. So place your left hand in the middle of your chest between your breasts. Exhale all air when you are ready. Then take a deep breath in, filling your belly, and then up into your heart. Open your heart into the hand. And on the exhalation, let the breath trickle down and out of your base into the seat. Again, a deep breath in, filling the belly all the way up into your heart, into your chest. Open your chest into the hand. And on the exhalation, let the breath trickle down and out of your base into the seat. And now imagine the center of your heart emanating as a green glow, filling your heart space, your chest, expanding beyond your chest into the hand and into the space around you. And on the exhalation, notice how your chest relaxes and the hand follows the relaxation. Again, breathing in the expansion of the orange orbit within you that emanates beyond your chest into space and then relaxing on the exhalation. And one more time, opening your heart, this green glow into your heart, into your hand, into the space around you, imbuing you with the green glow all over. And then take your hand off 1 inch. Continue in opening that glow beyond your chest into the space around you, into your hand that is no longer touching yet so connected. And then remove your hand, bring it back into your lap, and feel being surrounded by a green glow, your love energy within and without. And then take a moment and notice how you're feeling right now. And in coming back, opening your eyes, Sarah, if you could just share how you may feel at this very moment.
I feel so much more relaxed and grounded, and it's fascinating how stress and tension sneaks up on us. There's busy things in my life that I certainly would not have said I was tense coming into this conversation, and you just took me back into love, right? A state of love rather than a state of probably a bit of fear. Fear, as you heard, there were some people in my life who've had a lot of sickness, and so I've had to take on responsibilities to try to take care of them. And there's fear. Oh, am I going to do it right? Am I going to do her job right? Am I going to do his job right? And so coming back into that grounded space of love rather than fear.
Beautiful. Perhaps you want to take that feeling and that
Mm-hmm.
glow, into your everyday life, and
Yeah.
also the moments when you feel the fear or the uncertainty creeping in. That's the moment. Oh, let me remember.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean that there's not something to be taken care of, but the way we take care of it alters the way of experience and the contribution that we can be to others.
So, not avoiding the problem, but figuring out a new way to bring our best self to the problem. Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
And actually, by you dropping into your heart space, just through the breath, breathe into your heart center.
Mhm. Mhm.
It alters the chemistry. It alters your frequency in the moment. And when you are more, just like now, when you're more connected to
Mhm.
that, from that place, say, okay, what do I need to do? What do I need to ask Melissa? What needs to be taken care of today?
Mhm. Mhm.
The way you bring yourself to the environment shifts. The same challenges, the same concerns, but the
Mhm.
way how we encounter them is
Mhm.
different. And that allows us to deal with them differently.
And it
That's
allows us to be in our relationships differently.
exactly.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because, you know, the most important relationships in our life, how we parent.
Mm.
I do not want my memory of my children to be me a little too busy, right? I want them to come in that green glow with me as I think about visualizing that green glow in that heart space and the people I love, my family, my tribe, as I call them. I want my green glow to be so expansive that they come in that and they feel that love with me, right?
And they pick it up intuitively.
Mhm.
They don't like their mother to be in a
Right.
stress mode. It's because
Mhm.
then they get stressed.
Oh,
And the
absolutely.
cortisol, that hormone, the stress hormone,
Right.
while kids, when they feel
Mm.
you are in your glow, they immediately drop into their own.
Mm.
You don't even have to say something. It's very powerful.
It's very powerful. And if I can recap in one blip everything you've said, it's just reminds us how important it is to do our own healing work and our own self work to bring our best self to our future relationships, to parenting, to
Yeah.
career, to life, to energy.
Sarah, I would like to gift you and everybody who is,
Yes.
listening, which is a meditation practice
Yes, that'd be
that
beautiful.
allows the woman to connect with her heart and connect with her creative self.
Ah,
Then we can use that orange glow from the Creation Center to embellish our green glow.
I love it. Yes, we'll put that in the
Yeah,
show notes for sure. Yes, I would love that.
great.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, tell us where else we can find more about your and Freddie's work. And
Yes.
you just do such amazing things. Where can people find more about you?
Yeah, the best way is to go to tantranova.com, TantraNova.com,
Mhm.
like supernova,
Yes.
TantraNova. The new Tantra, that's really the integration of the physical, emotional, and spiritual. And there are workshops, there are introductories. We have a
Mhm.
Valentine's ritual coming
Oh.
up.
Mhm.
Yeah, the day before Valentine, just like 1.5 hours for you and your beloved. Or if you're single, you can bring a friend. There's nothing sexual, yet deeply connective
Mhm.
in that ritual. That just imagine we spend 1.5 hours together more deeply in what we opened up here today.
Beautiful.
And then, of course, our 3-day workshops, our retreats, and right now online, but they will open up again, hopefully late spring or summer, where we can have people here in Chicago at our institute or other places.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. And I have just enjoyed sitting in a soul space with you for sure in a stressful time a bit in my life. So thank you so much. And any last words of wisdom for our listeners?
Yeah, first, thank you for the spirit you are. I felt so enveloped in, the context you create in your
Thank
life.
you.
And it's been really fun dancing with you. And for everyone, just remember your heart.
Mhm.
If you feel distraught, if you don't know what to do, just take 3 breaths into your heart and listen to your heart. Your heart has the answer. However, you want to listen with an open heart,
Mhm.
not expecting an answer,
Mhm.
because then we get linear again, just like, What is it that you want me to know? Give me guidance, and then be open to what may come.
I love it. Thank you so much. Please check out her work, her and Freddie's work, and just her wisdom of peace and creating that internal peace within yourself to be able to have that full connection in relationships, right?
Yes,
I
yes.
love it. Well, thank you for helping us on our journey to become toxic person proof.